Okay, it took a minute to get going, but I should be on live for Helpdesk class on Wednesday. This is not a special event. I just want to make one live video per class per week this quarter, and probably every quarter. We have quite a bit of people online, and I want to make sure they can follow along, participate, ask questions, or watch it later if they missed it. So let's see here. This is not going to be super long, but I am going to introduce one new thing today. So the plan is we started in the first quarter kind of very simple on our assignments. I just made tickets and videos and stuff that we were doing, but I didn't have any course, any real tutorials or activities. I'd like to do a more official thing in the third quarter. So second semester we'll have some real course materials and really like officially go through some IT materials and learn some. Maybe I'll go with the Microsoft course. There's a sort of standard course that a lot of people take. The name is not coming to me right now. I had it in one of these tabs, but afterwards you can get a certification. A+, that's what it's called, A+. I even have some textbooks for that. But I'd like to sort of start small, and I'd like to start with stuff that is exactly what we do in the building. So instead of learning about like some network that we don't have or some errors that we don't see. By the way, here's an error. The video streaming might be choppy. I hope it's okay, but we'll see how it goes in the recording. This quarter, I'd like to do some very specific tutorials on what we have in the building. So for example, we work with projectors, we work with computers, we work with cables, screens, that kind of stuff. And I'd like to have a little more serious knowledge of that stuff. For example, if we were going to ask for a certain cable, we could be like, oh, it's the fat one, or it's the one with 2 things instead of 3. But I'd rather be able to say, oh, that's the type C cable, you know? Have a little bit of specific terminology, stuff that is clear and accurate, and also stuff that you can take into the world, and if you use the right term somewhere else, then people would know what you're talking about. Or if you know the right concept somewhere else, people would know what you're talking about. So I'd like to start small and go with a very small group project. We're going to have pairs, groups of 2, or maybe one group of 3 if we have an odd number. And I'm going to give you a topic. So one group is going to have the classic computer parts. We'll open up a computer and you can tell us about the power supply, and tell us about the fan, and tell us about the motherboard and a couple things on it, and tell us about the disk drive if there is one, or the graphics card if there is one. And nothing incredibly detailed, but just what they are, how to identify them, what they do, how you might replace them or fix them or move them around. It's very easy to see with these old computers, and you can open it up and there's like, you know, giant parts with space between. If you look at one of our newer tiny computers, these Lenovo Think Centers that the teachers have, it's a little harder because they're all compact. But that'll be one group, is to go over the parts of a computer, and it may be a lot of stuff you already know, but you want to make sure we have the right idea and have the right terminology and so on. Another group is going to do cables. Like I said, I really feel bad sometimes that I don't know the right names for the cables. I'm like, oh, it's the one with the triangle-y thing, and I'd rather be able to say, oh, this is exactly what type of USB, this is exactly what type of power, this is exactly what type of audio or video, and so on. Especially the ones we use. So like if you're looking at some type of, data connection that exists in servers somewhere but we don't need, well, let's save that for next semester. But I'm talking about the USB, the power, the stuff that we actually use every day. In here, we want to be able to know what they are and what they're good for. Next would be the projector. We have a lot of projectors in the building, even though we're switching over to these new touch screens. We still have a lot, we still use them, we still move them around. And let's learn the parts of a projector. The bulb, the filter, what kind of power, what kind of what kind of settings. Whenever you put it on the ceiling versus on a table, it has to reverse the image, or whenever you put it at an angle, it has that key setting of tilting it into a trapezoid that ends up looking correct. Sometimes it adjusts that automatically, sometimes it doesn't. Things like that. I know in the past, a few years ago, we had a student who was really good at opening up projectors and fixing the parts, and maybe one of you guys could get good enough to be able to do that. I know now if you open them up, you'd mostly just see dust, but still, maybe we could get a vacuum or a blower to clean out that stuff. I think we have a little bit of money in a fund, and we could get what you need if you guys know enough, and if you guys are specific enough, we could definitely get what we need. Also, a thing for the projectors is we could get a ladder. I always hate to have to borrow a ladder in order to climb up, but maybe if we just purchase one, we can keep it in the room. Another group will do the screens. We have these new touch screens, but we also have older ones around the building, and they have audio, which is usually simple, but there's always an extra layer to it. For example, the audio is usually carried in the same cable as something else. In our current new screens, we have an HDMI, which carries the video plus audio. Or in the old boards that went with the projector, they had a USB that would carry the signal for the touch and then also have the audio with it. So that's one thing that makes it slightly more complicated, is if you have a cable that carries multiple inputs or outputs. And you can talk about the touch and how it works and how to calibrate it. And I know in Windows 8 and 10, sometimes they treat it like a mouse, and sometimes they treat it like a different thing, because those operating systems are made for touchscreens as well. So they might have a sort of built-in touch interface there, which is sometimes annoying if it gets in the way, but that's its own problem. So I want to get into pairs. This is not a giant project that's going to take a group of 4, but if you have 1 or 2 or 3 people, you can choose one of these topics and take a few days, and maybe after a week or 2 we can present these. This is going to be a video because I don't want to do in-person presentations that would exclude the online students. I want to do something that's going to cover them both equally, whether you're here or at home, or whether you do some of both. You can make a video, post a video, and people can see it regardless of where they are or where you are. So that's the plan, and I'd like to start today. We'll also do our normal stuff today. I'll check to see if anybody has tickets. We can maybe deliver a couple of these cameras, etc. But this is going to be a small project. We'll have another slightly bigger one this quarter, and then we'll get into some more official course materials in the third quarter. And by the end, you'll have seen the stuff we have here. You'll have seen more universal stuff, and you'll also have experience with just issues that come up each day. So I'm going to stop this video because I want to make them so that they're short enough that people can watch later without having to spend a lot of their time. And let me know if you have any questions. Oh, okay. I think I hit end and then I tried to hit start again. What in the world?